more palatable to the league and a little, less out and visible, would you kind of still support protests on the field? Do you feel like this is kind of moving it away from putting it out there on the field in front of a mass audience?
I support any protest that's effective, and if you can provide effective ways to push a conversation forward and help people at the same time, that I'm really into action. I'm really into like real work. I'm not into like how it looks. How it looks only lasts for a couple months until we really start doing the work. And everybody, oh, I've been in this position many times where people, before I even say what I'm about to do, have told me what I'm thinking or how it's going to turn out. And then 5 years later, we look back at, take titles, is a great example for take that 5 years ago, and now you look at it today and people have a different outlook on it. But at the time, it was like, what's going on? So I've been in this position many times, and I just show up and do the work. I'm not really interested in how things look on the outside. And if protesting on the field is the most effective way, then protest on the field. But if you have a vehicle like Inspire Change where you can speak to the masses and educate at the same time as well, tell people what's going on so people are not controlling your narrative and not telling you your protest is about this. And you're like, no, I'm telling you out of my mouth it's about this one thing. But if you have a platform that's reaching millions of people, it's hard to steer the narrative the way they want to.
And I just add one thing to that. I think what the players want is to focus on the work in the communities that they're doing and the problems and addressing them. They did the protest to bring attention to that. Now they want to get to the hard work of helping make progress in those communities. And so that's where they want the attention. That's what they want to see, is the work that we're all doing together to try to make our communities better. And they're leading.
Do you want the protest to stop, Commissioner?
I want us to take what they've been talking about and the focus and what they're protesting about to go make a change in the communities, because that's what they wanted. That's what they were doing.
Have you, Jay-Z, have you spoken with Cap? If so, what was the conversation? If not, why not?
I would never tell you what me and Cap's private conversation was about, but we spoke, yeah.
And is he supportive?
I would never tell you about our conversation.
What is the current state, or what is the current anthem policy? And if people still choose to take a knee or protest during the anthem, will this vehicle be used as a discouragement? Might you say, well, why do that any longer when we set up this whole new vehicle to inspire change?
But you can also ask that question, if this vehicle be used as an encouragement.
No, I got you. Well, obviously it can be, but I'm just saying some people...
No, I just wanted to open that up for you.
No, I agree with you. but we know, let's be honest, with everything we're dealing with...
I'm only honest.
And even what we're dealing with right now, I doubt that the rate of speed by which inspired change can make a difference is going to catch up to a lot of stuff that's happening today. We still have police killings happening every single day. We have people being killed by domestic terrorism. I mean, we're not going to be able to solve all this in the 2019-2020 season.
So, but don't you want to get started?
Well, no, let's get started. What I'm saying is, in the interim, people are going to want to say, I may want to take a knee, or I may want to make a statement.
But that's
about this outside
that's
of
what
this.
our Inspired Change platform is, to continue to show what's going on in those communities and what we can do to try to help it, and what our players are doing to make the change. And that's what we're doing. And that's why we continue to work with our Players Association, the Players Coalition, to try to say, we're not walking away from that. We're actually putting more research in. We're bringing more partnerships to bring not only awareness, but change.
Yes, can you just speak about the role that Robert Kraft played in brokering this deal?
Yeah, I think that we, through our work with prison reform, and I think he saw how serious we were in the room, and we've had a relationship before, and we basically talk. Actually, no one mentions, with all due respect, no one mentions Adam Levine in this whole thing and his role that he played in this. We all talk about Cap because that's a hot button issue, but this is an entertainment company as well. we also discussed what happened at the Super Bowl, right? Because that was one of the things that sparked this conversation as well. What happened at the Super Bowl? And I explained to them how the process went with the Super Bowl and myself and what I felt about it. And we were, again, frank conversations, super clear.
Helpful.
We had super frank conversations, and, you know, it slowly evolved from there. So how do we fix it? And I sat with Roger and I was like, man, if this is about me playing the Super Bowl, then we might as well just end this meeting now, because that's not enough. You know, we need to, you guys have a platform, you know, people are upset. You know, private citizens for me are, with everything that's going on in the country, private citizens are the one that's gonna have to push things forward, working together like we do with reform. We're not relying on government to do it. Okay, let's take this group of people and let's introduce these bills and see what we can do. You know, let's take Team Rock, like, you know, Team Rock organization we started. Let's take current events where people are getting in trouble every day and it's on the news cycle, and let's stop a little boy from getting arrested for singing the national anthem in school. That's a real thing, you know, so that's how the whole thing came about. It was like, let's make it bigger than that. Let's use this platform to really inspire change, and, you know, let's put on some great performances.
And even the entertainment.
Will you be performing as well?
Not this year, no.
But even, just to go to Jay's point, it's even entertainment well beyond the Super Bowl, as you saw from Asia's presentation. We're talking about engaging our players. We're talking about using our events, all our events, the draft, the Super Bowl, the Pro Bowl, the kickoffs, to be able to use this partnership and have it come to life. It's just not Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Commissioner, I know, well, you and the NFL, and Jay, you and Rob, I'm sure have thought about how you'll measure success of this program. Can you give us any insight on what success would look like for this program?
I don't have a number. It's not a number. Like with reform, we got 1 million people, which is a nutso number, right? I don't have a number, but I'm sure that we'll reevaluate as this thing go along. How many people are we touching? How many people are we reaching? We're constantly looking at the you know, the metrics and all the numbers of what's happening and who we're touching and who we're speaking to and who's participating and how many impressions has it had and how many people that are affected in real time, like real. So we'll keep evaluating that as we go along. Yeah.
T, I just add to what Jay said, elevate the entertainment too. I mean, we always want to get better, and we think we can do that. We got the best in the business right here. So we think we can do that, but the impact is really important. And as I've teased several times, with all this great entertainment, I hope people don't forget that a great football game is going to break out in the middle of it, by the way.
I hope they do.
Jay, from a hip hop point of view, I remember you once said to Nas, "You trying to keep knowledge," and since then we've seen you change and evolve, and I think people forget about that to some extent. I remember the water initiative in Africa, Sean Bell, et cetera, et cetera. How do you address people who may have those short-term memory issues, you know, or do you care?
I just got to do the work. You know, that's the only thing that quiets that. Like, because, you know, we can go back and forth and have different perspectives of what we believe should happen, right? This should happen, or it should be like this, and this person should be involved. How could it go forward if this person isn't involved? You know, all these different things that we can talk about and speak about, but no one can argue with the facts. No one can argue with the work. You know, so I just got to do the work. And again, I'm familiar with this position. This is what I do.
Will this initiative create jobs or any other, you know, we talk about inspiring the community, et cetera, but what about like jobs, things that people can really touch and feel?
I don't know.
So
you know,
also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Also in there, there's education and all these other things which will lead to job creation. And anybody that plugs in, say a song of the season, and that's your platform that you want to speak about. And it's not just our platform, we're plugging into anyone who wants to be involved. So say I'm Chance the Rapper and I feel like I want to create jobs in Chicago. We're going to support that initiative. Right. So it could be anything. It could be any initiative, anything social injustice, anything that's happening in the country, we can plug into it. Okay. Yeah.
I think I just add. I think it's going to be driven a lot by our players and the artists. We're going to continue to listen to them, see where we can have the greatest impact.
Jeff? Hi, Joe Reswack from Variety. Do you have a list yet of organizations that you're going to partner with that will benefit from this partnership? And also, Jay, do you regard this partnership as a form of protest? I mean, are you looking to change things from the inside?
Of course, yes. I'll answer that first. Guess I don't have anything else to add to that. Just yes.
What's the question then for me?
The question was, do you have a list or have you set things up with nonprofit organizations?
Yes. We've already, as a matter of fact, not just a list, we've already started funding for the last 2 years, which we can give you an entire list of all the organizations that we have done with our players, with our clubs. And that funding began probably 18 months ago. Okay. And we have commitments to do that going in the future. And I think opportunity is something I'd say that's going to come out of this, where I think there'll be additional opportunities and frankly additional money that may come out of this that will go back into the communities because of this.
Okay, so there are no new partnerships as of yet as a result of this one?
We're not making that announcement today, no, but I have no question that that's going to evolve as we continue to talk with the artists and the players.
What he's saying, what was exciting for us as well is what we're saying is all those other initiatives Rock Nation drew up and these guys agreed to, which you have to give them credit for that. Inspire Change already existed. They already were donating money. I think it was 1.4 from the last event, but it was so, in my opinion, it was so spread out that it needed to be happening all year long, and not just happening around a Super Bowl event. Couldn't be like one event a year. It had to happen all the time and throughout the whole year. So things are happening every day. Like we were.
Hey everybody, oh, there's some selfies on stage.
Know you yet. What would you like for them to know about you?
Oh, that's such a nice question. All I really care about in this world is making a huge difference for cancer patients. And what we really do at Yosemite and what I've wanted to do my entire life is to make cancer non-lethal in our lifetimes. If we can be a part of that, that is exactly what I want to do and what I would love to be known for. But ultimately, notoriety is really low on my list of priorities. What I really care about the most is being involved with amazing science, but especially making great companies and translating those into patients as soon as possible, because patients are the ultimate arbiters for how well we're doing. So patient difference is really where we're at.
And so you have a specific plan to do that. So you took the wraps off of a venture fund last month, I guess, last month, a $200 million venture fund, and you run alongside it a donor-advised fund. So tell me a little bit about what you have cooking there.
So it's a structure that we actually have pioneered at Yosemite. So it's pretty unusual, and it's something that I'd love to get an opportunity to talk about because it's something that we're very excited to debut, but also something that we hope other people will eventually copy. So the way that it works is our venture fund is a very traditional venture fund with one big exception. And that is that there's a percentage of the fund, it's small, it's only 2.5%, that goes into a donor-advised fund, which is a type of nonprofit entity that one doesn't own, but that they can still direct. That capital is then earmarked for grants, which is far more akin to seed funding in the biotech ecosystem than it would be philanthropy in other areas. And the reason why we're doing this is really piloted this at Emerson, and through partnering with the best researchers in the world on their best projects, we then can not only de-risk science that we then turn into companies, but we also get a network of the best KOLs in the world. And we've done this long enough that we've been lucky to support about 500 labs so far, and have a really big footprint across the academic ecosystem. Those are connections and insights that we're going to be able to take with us as we make our investment decisions too. I want to pause though and just mention the way that we've structured this means that we have absolutely no IP or royalty rights to any of the grants that we do. I like to keep things really simple and really easy. And for me, that really means when we do a venture investment, we have to look at it on its merits of profitability and scalability. But when we do grants, we don't take any IP strings and we just do it as a pure philanthropic gift.
That's great. And just curious, when you're dealing with donor-advised funds, do the donors have any say in how that money is distributed, or that's entirely up to you?
That's entirely at our discretion.
Okay. And so this is sort of analogous to what you were doing at Emerson Collective, your mother's philanthropic and business organization. So why did you feel compelled to start your own thing, Yosemite?
Absolutely. So Emerson has had branches of it scale out in the public markets before. There's a group called Earthshot, which is a fantastic fund that works on the climate space, which similarly has now taken on external capital outside of Emerson. So for my team, it was a real natural evolution. I'll tell you, we're really proud to debut this model because it's something that other people can actually replicate. There's nothing here that's the province of cancer. You could absolutely do this for neurodegenerative diseases, for autoimmune diseases, and we hope other people will. And then finally, my team and I are, all of a similar stage in our lives, and we wanted a little independence. We wanted to have our own firm, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
That's great. I just wondered, this does kind of put you in the public spotlight maybe for the first time, and you've already said it's nothing that you're terribly interested in. I'm just wondering how that feels.
It feels like a remarkable privilege and honor to be able to promote great science, great research, and really educate people on the fact that what we've done and seen in cancer outcomes in just the last 20 years is the very beginning of what is likely to happen over the next 20 years. And that is the optimization and really the dissemination of next generation therapies, mostly immunotherapies, but gene editing ones as well, to a broader range of diseases. So just to give you one small example, so I started working in cancer labs when my father got sick, really as soon as I could. He was diagnosed when I was 12. I, at 15, started working in labs at Stanford. And at that point, what was really cutting edge was genomic sequencing. And I worked in a lab of colorectal cancer, and it was a type of that which was hereditary. And it was a terrible outcome. I mean, people would get colectomies at 35. It was almost a guaranteed, prognosis of getting colon cancer in your lifetime. Really, really terrible. And we found there's certain mutational signatures there, and basically it had a crazy load of mutations, like millions of mutations. These cells were so out of control. But from the beginning of immunotherapy, when it began to be tested in that, the difference between those cancer cells and the rest of your body is so stark that even today's immunotherapy works marvelously in that type of colon cancer. And in my lifetime, I've already seen one area go from just absolute, really, really poor prognosis to something now that is widely treatable and has a really great long-term survival rate. So that's one example, but it's very illustrative of what we're seeing now with just the first iteration of this technology. Optimizing things like immunotherapy, CAR T cells, it'll take quite a while. Biotech is much slower than tech, which is unfortunate, but we have to be really deliberate and safe. And as we get and optimize those to the rest of the market, we're really excited to bring them out to a lot of other indications.
That's great. I'm just curious, Daryl mentioned that you never wanted to be a venture capitalist, and I know that you studied pre-med. Did you ever think about starting a company, or do you just feel like you can have much more impact doing what you're doing?
Well, I think I can have a much more impact doing what I'm doing at this stage. Given the trends in the market and really in science, it's really outpacing what any one company is likely able to do. I also, am just innately very competitive. And, my family, if you're going to start a company, it's got to be a hit.
It's a tall bar, I'm sure, in the Jobs household. I wanted to ask, if you had taken any of your team with you. I just met one of your wonderful colleagues, Anna, who I know came from Thrive Capital.
Yes, I'm proud to say that we brought actually the entire investment team.
Oh, okay, great.
From what was previously the Emerson Collective Health team into Yosemite. So our track record and experience, that's all carried over, which I'm very proud of. We didn't lose anybody.
Okay, because I was wondering what would make sort of like a Yosemite company investment versus Emerson. But Emerson's not doing this at all anymore.
That's correct. Emerson's no longer doing life science investing. They will still do some healthcare, tech investing. But on the life sciences side, that's really now through Yosemite.
Okay, so cancer cures, broadly speaking, is what you're focused on. How do you think about your approach? I mean, how many different sort of baskets are you looking at, and what is your priority here?
Well, again, we like to say we want to make cancer non-lethal. We're wary of the word cure. It's been abused in this industry a lot, and we really want to be very cautious about what we're going to be promising that we can deliver here. But ultimately, I'd say the three areas we really focus on are early detection, which is so critical. I mean, every cancer where you have a way to detect it early, you have a commensurately lower mortality. And right now we have some great ones like PSA, mammograms, colonoscopies. Those are work quite well. But for the rest of cancers, it's really, really a crapshoot. And more often than not, things are caught when they're late and they're metastatic and they're far more dangerous. So things like liquid biopsies and actually a lot of AI in scans like MRIs and PTs have become really, really precise at picking up early cancer markers. We're still in the early days of the liquid biopsy space, but that's an area that is going to be increasingly important for catching things early. And once you do that, you just have far more options. So that's one vertical that we've been incredibly devoted in for quite a long time. The second one is something I mentioned earlier, which is immunotherapy. Ultimately, your body is the best defense mechanism that you have. Your body's so amazing. I'm always just in awe of it. And we've evolved for millions of years to combat infections and to combat cancer. All of us right now sitting in this audience have cells that are likely precancerous. And the reason why they don't advance is because 99.9% of the time your body's immune system can recognize it and eliminate it. And optimizing those basic functions of your immune system are the core of the immunotherapy technologies that we have today. So getting those to where they are going to be is a huge area of ours. It's an imperfect analogy, but it's a little bit akin to, say, software in the early 80s, where it's still, the province of those who really are a little bit geekier. Right. And it's not really quite disseminated yet, but you can see the potential and where it's going. And I would say the last area that we're focused on quite a lot is digital health, which is really a little bit more on the tech side of things. This is enabling services for clinical trial optimization, for care in the home, really to get patients what they need when they're in a clinical care setting, but also to try to help optimize the entire clinical trial system, which is wildly inefficient and runs on paper. It is still in the analog world. It's kind of amazing if you've ever been to a hospital lately, and I certainly hope you haven't, but it's kind of stunning. It's sort of like a time machine. You go back to the late 80s, and it's something that we just find completely unacceptable because the cost of patients are just too great.
Sure. I mean, everything about the hospital system is so anachronistic. It is just, gobsmacking. But what are you maybe seeing that it gives you hope about, sort of the regarding the democratization of clinical trials? I feel like I've been hearing about this for years. Obviously, we heard a little bit more about it during COVID. But what are there any companies in particular that you're excited about, or software systems that you think are actually like making an impact? Or is
Totally. Okay, absolutely. 3% of cancer patients are in clinical trials. I just want to start with that statistic, which is
just 3.
Really low. Yeah. Really, really low. And the reasons for this are quite interesting. Right now, most trials happen at major academic hospitals. if you're a big pharmaceutical company, that's where you go to recruit. And patient recruitment is by far the most costly and most time-intensive part of that whole process. Now, the good news is there was a law passed a while ago that says that you cannot really pay people to be in your trials, which is great because that could be abused quite easily if you had to, get financially induced to be in a trial.
Right.
Thank goodness that's not the case. However, that's actually tilted a bit too much because now it's really difficult for people to get reimbursed for things like transportation, housing, and work.
Yeah.
And when you're a patient, those can often be prohibitive costs. So what we've seen is the data we get is often really wealthy people who are Caucasian. And as we all know, that's a very narrow data set.
Right.
So what's happened, and COVID's been the key accelerant for this, is when COVID hit, cancer patients especially can't go to hospitals because they're full of COVID patients and they're immunosuppressed and they're very vulnerable. So trials got decentralized out into the private physician offices. And this made it so much more accessible. We've seen a massive uptick in participation. There's two really good companies right now that are doing this, Medable and Section 32, but there's quite a lot more that are taking it even further. And that's actually care in the home, which is great for some places, and all types of other interesting new technologies to really bring us not into academic centers, but really meeting us where we are.
That's great. I do wonder on that front if, because of what happened during COVID, there have been challenges just in terms of, trust in science, and even if clinical trials are being made available, if people who should be partaking them are partaking them. I'm sure you don't have a silver bullet here, but I'm just wondering how much you think what went on set us back, if at all.
I think it's a big deal. Trust in science, they've been pulling this for about 50 years. It's not an all-time low, but it's close. And it is totally unacceptable to us that that's actually happening, particularly at this moment when we're actually seeing some efficacy finally in the cancer vaccine space. Of course, vaccines have really been lambasted by some folks who find them very unsafe. It's been a long-term goal to actually get your immune system to recognize cancer preemptively like it would for an infectious disease, which is of course why you get vaccines. Just a few months ago, there was a early phase 1 trial published, this is in the New York Times, that showed a 50% response in pancreatic cancer. 50%. It's never happened before.
And pancreatic cancer is one of the hardest things to diagnose, right? I feel like
oh, absolutely. It's one of the hardest diagnosed.
Yeah.
It has it's a desert of success with therapies. Nothing ever works there. It's an early phase 1. It was only 6 out of 12 patients, so a very small sample size, but no one's ever really seen that before. So even right now, in some of the most difficult cancers, some of those new ideas are taking off. So the last thing any of us would want to see is a great cancer vaccine running into a lot of vaccine skepticism.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of other stuff that I know interests you, and I think, again, some people in the audience will be well acquainted with, but others won't. We were talking backstage about genetic engineering, and I was saying that kind of brings to mind genetic engineering, and I was saying
Proud to debut this model because it's something that other people can actually replicate. There's nothing here that's the province of cancer. You could absolutely do this for neurodegenerative diseases, for autoimmune diseases, and we hope other people will. And then finally, my team and I are, all of a similar stage in our lives, and we wanted a little independence. We wanted to have our own firm, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
That's great. I just wondered, this does kind of put you in the public spotlight maybe for the first time, and you've already said it's nothing that you're terribly interested in. I'm just wondering how that feels.
It feels like a remarkable privilege and honor to be able to promote great science, great research, and really educate people on the fact that what we've done and seen in cancer outcomes in just the last 20 years is the very beginning of what is likely to happen over the next 20 years. And that is the optimization and really the dissemination of next generation therapies, mostly immunotherapies, but gene editing ones as well, to a broader range of diseases. So just to give you one small example, so I started working in cancer labs when my father got sick, really as soon as I could. He was diagnosed when I was 12. I, at 15, started working in labs at Stanford. And at that point, what was really cutting edge was genomic sequencing. And I worked in a lab of colorectal cancer, and it was a type of that which was hereditary. And it was a terrible outcome. I mean, people would get colectomies at 35. It was almost a guaranteed, prognosis of getting colon cancer in your lifetime. Really, really terrible. And we found there's certain mutational signatures there, and basically it had a crazy load of mutations, like millions of mutations. These cells were so out of control. But from the beginning of immunotherapy, when it began to be tested in that, the difference between those cancer cells and the rest of your body is so stark that even today's immunotherapy works marvelously in that type of colon cancer. And in my lifetime, I've already seen one area go from just absolute, really, really poor prognosis to something now that is widely treatable and has a really great long-term survival rate. So that's one example, but it's very illustrative of what we're seeing now with just the first iteration of this technology. Optimizing things like immunotherapy, CAR T cells. It'll take quite a while. Biotech is much slower than tech, which is unfortunate, but we have to be really deliberate and safe. And as we get and optimize those to the rest of the market, we're really excited to bring them out to a lot of other indications.
That's great. I'm just curious, Daryl mentioned that you never wanted to be a venture capitalist, and I know that you studied pre-med. Did you ever think about starting a company, or do you just feel like you can have much more impact doing what you're doing?
Well, I think I can have a much more impact doing what I'm doing at this stage. Given the trends in the market and really in science, it's really outpacing what any one company is likely able to do. I also, am just innately very competitive. And, my family, if you're going to start a company, it's got to be a hit.
It's a tall bar, I'm sure, in the Jobs household. I wanted to ask, if you had taken any of your team with you. I just met one of your wonderful colleagues, Anna, who I know came from Thrive Capital.
Yes, I'm proud to say that we brought actually the entire investment team.
Oh. So Reed, you have one of the most famous last names in Silicon Valley, yet people don't. So cancer cure.
Healthcare, we're going to be.
Your team with you. I just met one of your. I know that you studied.
Emerson's no longer well. Software in the early 80s, where it's still, the province of, those who really are a little bit geekier, and it's not really quite disseminated yet, which is wildly inefficient and into a hospital lately. Which is wildly inefficient and certainly hope you have it, which is wildly inefficient and runs on paper. It is still in the analog world. It's amazing if you've ever been to a hospital, which is wildly inefficient and runs hospital lately, certainly, which is wildly inefficient and runs on paper. Trial system, which is wildly inefficient and runs the entire clinical trial system. Setting, but also to try to help optimize what they need when they're in a clinical care setting, but also to try to help optimize the entire. Hope you have it, but what they need when they're in. It's kind of it's sort of like a time machine. What they need machine. You go back what they need when they're in a clinical care setting, but also acceptable because what they need when they're and it's what they need when they're in a clinical care. Go back to the late. What they need when they're in a clinical care setting, but also to try to help optimize the entire clinical trial system, which is wildly inefficient and runs on paper. It is still in the analog world. It's kind of amazing if you've ever been to a hospital lately, and I certainly hope you have it, but it's kind of stunning. It's sort of like a time machine. You go back to the late, what they need when they're in a clinical care setting, but also to try to help optimize the entire clinical trial system, which is wildly inefficient and runs on paper. It is still in the analog world. It's kind of amazing if you've ever been to a hospital lately, and I certainly hope you have it, but it's kind of stunning. It's sort of like a time machine. You go back to the late what they need when they're in a clinical care setting, but also to try to help optimize the entire clinical trial system, which is wildly inefficient and runs on paper. It is still in the analog world. It's kind of amazing if you've ever been to a hospital lately, and I certainly hope you haven't, but it's kind of stunning. It's sort of like a time machine.
That was intense. I was like, this is a big game. Played Fallout 4. That was great. So, and then when I was having like a birthday, I asked for the hey, can I have that statue of that weird guy in the Fallout? With the 1950s guy with that. You know that guy? Anyway. So yeah, it's a life-size statue. Okay. Of this 1950s dude in like I guess a Volt jumpsuit. It's the Volt Boy. Volt Boy, exactly, Volt Boy.
You have this at home?
It was so weird having that at a party because like, most basically they were like two. Nerds that knew what they referred to, like, yeah. And everyone else was like, man, that's weird.
Now, going back in time, when you were a kid, you programmed a game. Is that true? Like in the early 80s?
Yeah, I mean, from I was just a kid, yeah.
You're like 12, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's probably like 10 or 11 when I programmed that game, but it got published when I was 12.
Blaster, it's called?
Yeah, it's a simple game. It's like you sort of fight, you're a space fighter and you fight an alien space raider. Yeah, I read the game. The graphics and the sound and everything, just everything else. So it's a very simple game, I want to emphasize.
When you were younger, did you ever aspire to like make games or get into making games?
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I thought about doing career-wise, sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Seemed like that would be super fun. Yeah.
I took that and then you went like rocket science for a few places where you kept doing a little bit of stuff, right?
Yeah, actually, I worked at a gaming startup. Which weirdly was called rocket science.
Yeah.
Fate loves irony.
Yeah.
I worked at rocket science programming games. It was a long time ago. And it must have been like 93 or something, or 94. Yeah, it was tricky.
Never applied Bethesda stuff?
I didn't. But
He was doing other things.
Well, my original plan was to go to grad school at Stanford and do just study ultracapacitors for use in electric vehicles. So I always wanted to do electric cars and work on like sustainable. energy, and then also rockets would be cool. I mean, I can sort of talk a little bit about like but basically, it's like what are the things I think are like quite important for the future to be good, and obviously, in order for the future to be good, we have to have sustainable energy, so we have to have sustainable production and consumption of energy. So that means making solar panels low cost and making electric cars appealing. And then we want to become multi-planet species in a space race civilization, such as rockets. And then there's some things that will affect the future, but I'm not sure if it's good or bad, like AI. That scares me, that one.
Sure.
In fact,
I just made video games. It's not that.
Yeah, but
I was gonna do all that, but I actually don't know how to do that. So
I think it turned out. Yeah, in Fallout 3, the AI basically caused World War III, as I recall, something like that.
a little bit.
I want to spoil it.
I mean, is there a link there? Between sort of, you talk about AI and video game AI and the technology in video games. Is there anything there that sort of helps push technology that you think? I mean, you look at like self-driving cars or other things. Like, are there things from video games that you think help push technology forward?
Well, I think probably just like interesting technology. Maybe the reason was video games. So probably wouldn't have started programming if it wasn't for video games. Or been as interested in computers and technology if it wasn't for video games. So I think actually video games are a very powerful force for getting young kids interested in technology. It has way bigger knock-on effects than people may realize. And generally, like if we're interviewing somebody for a software engineering role at Tesla or SpaceX, many times like, how do you start programming? It's like, oh, go to video games, over and over again. And I think many of the best software engineers in the world are at or spent much of their career at video games houses. And especially if people had to try to create incredibly realistic graphics using very little compute power. That's a hard problem. And so a lot of people had to write really tight code and come up with really clever ideas to do that. If you like someone like, say, John Carmack, who's an amazing software engineer, was also actually a really good aerospace engineer. And it shows like problem solving, like this transfer. Like you figure out software engineering problem solving transfer. Other things.
Carmack told me the best anecdote between video games and rockets. He said rocket AI is actually for him. Quite easy, just thrust left, thrust right. Gaming AI is so much harder. The difference is when the game crashes, he presses reboot, and when the rocket crashes. Giant mess spread over several miles. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some joke about like if if reality was a video game. You know, it's sort of like the graphics are great. The plot's terrible. And the spawn time's really long.
How has the stuff Elon done inspired or affected what you do, Todd, in your world?
Well, I mean, the space stuff, as we look at Starfield, you know, that's where we kind of look, okay, who is really, how are these things actually going to work in the future? Got to go to SpaceX last year. That place is like the Avengers meets NASA. Like if anyone ever gets it, it's incredible. But what do those things look like as we, you know, as we do a science fiction game? But the other stuff in the cars and the self-driving is something I'm very passionate about. But that doesn't affect the game stuff. And I know that now you're putting games on the Teslas, so that's different.
Yeah, actually, thanks for helping out on that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we are. We talked about that, and we said, hey, would it be pretty cool? So we're actually working together. Skyrim on it. That's a little. We're gonna start a little smaller. So we are working on Fallout Shelter for the cars. Yeah, so it'll be free. And you'll have your little dwellers on the screen, like they live in the car in some way. So it's a great starting point.
So how is this going to work with games? You know, you talked about Unity, Unreal, you're porting it all, being able to put Tesla. So this. You have to be in park when you play these, or how does this work?
Yeah. You have to park the car.
Okay.
Yeah, the fun place make us. Park the car. So yes, yeah. Like we're also going to enable people to watch like.
Sam, I had this wild idea to talk about video games.
With? Just us or anyone important?
With lovely people like Timur Hussain.
Yeah. Lucy James.
Lucy James. And also Phil Spencer and Matt Booty are joining us here on the couch. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's nice.
Yeah, this is nice. It's when I was thinking about like, Summer Game Fest, things kind of get back to normal. It's like, what is the thing that happens during the summer that makes it really feel like, oh, E3 to me? This is E3. But it is.
I still call it E3.
I do too.
can't help myself.
It's a bad habit. Bad habit. Yeah. But it is Phil Spencer on the couch after a.
Yeah. You can just say that.
Yeah,
out somewhere. Oh, there he is again.
Yep.
Look at him.
Face down.
Look at the eyes.
Pick me up and carry me back.
His camera's get up.
I guess the first question is, how are you feeling today? You guys had your big showcase this morning. It's got to be kind of nonstop. Have you had a chance to reflect on it?
And you were saying earlier that usually you do this kind of thing a day later.
Have a chance to
yeah,
I wouldn't call it kind of thing. I do this exact thing
a day later.
after.
So what's it been like to come here immediately?
Yeah, it was. So first, great job, you guys. Like I've been watching the content as much as I can, like doing interviews and stuff. And I appreciate you reaching out and giving us. Opportunity to come on and talk. So thank you to everybody. Yeah, like normally we do our briefing on a Sunday. Day, and then Monday, like Sony and Nintendo go, and then I go and Jeff on Monday night. And he could kind of beat me up about bad games or something, but we have like a good discussion. Yeah. But I had a little bit of time to kind of internalize what has been going on, and literally like from our showcase this morning, it's been like boom, interview. So I'm a little bit less connected to like the reaction to our show.
I've been here all day to talk about this stuff. So I mean, maybe it's good, a little silo. We'll say a bunch of stuff that no one else is saying. It doesn't matter at all.
You guys, as long as Matt and I, like, you good?
Okay. How about you, Mike? What's it been like for you to kind of like be in it again? And then come here immediately.
It just really feels good for the teams, right? Our teams, they work so hard, and through all the challenges and all the expectations, they got to keep their heads down and work. And it was great that we had people from Obsidian, Church and Exile in the audience. And just, I mean, it's a big moment for them, right?
That's the thing I wonder about the most. It seems like these assets you have to produce for these big events take more time and effort than they've ever taken before. Is that accurate?
Yeah, when we start working on this show in January, February, so most of the teams will show up with storyboards and what they're going to present. We start looking at it like right after.
That's 6 months, half a year.
Yeah, and it's a lot for them because everybody, you know, it's part of our process, which is great, but there's a lot of eyeballs on it, there's a lot of feedback. A lot of rework and it pays off, right? So, but for the teams, for me, it's a combination. It's feeling so proud for them, happy that they get their moment in the sun. Especially when it's something cool and we can surprise people. I'm just proud of them, right? Our team's been working so hard.
Yeah, you said it pays off. I mean, is there a method that happens where you're looking at, like, okay, you are going to have to work on this asset for this thing that is a big promotional thing for your game, instead of maybe doing some work on the game itself? Is there a calculus there?
Yeah, I mean, for us, ideally, we're taking stuff that's already been put together and trying to put it in a package, right? Yeah. So Phil and I, usually the day before Friday, we were at an Exile, we were at Obsidian, same stuff. A year ago, we saw Clockwork Revolution running, played it, Phil played it on console, and you can see a lot of what we saw a year ago in the trailer. So that's ideal because, and we're trying to get more and more to that where it's less, stop what you're doing, go make this trailer. Yeah. Or what have you got running that we can capture that then becomes a great trailer?
Right, that's exactly what I was wondering. Yeah,
I was going to say, so you talked about having your stuff prepared in advance. Obviously, these showcases are no longer just we're going to show you things. It's also like a kind of statement that you're trying to make, or you're trying to present a message, or you're trying to make sure the audience knows where you're going with things. How do you deal with the nature of needing to be reactive to changing times and opinions. Obviously, jumping into the thick of it, you guys had a recent, the narrative around Xbox became kind of stuck on Redfall and needing to kind of bounce back from that. How do you react to that, knowing that a showcase like this started its production 6 months ago, and do you suddenly have the kind of flexibility to be like, we need to move these pieces about so we can address this thing?
Yeah, we honestly don't. And I know there were, like I was watching some of the sleuths on the internet when the persona stuff leaked, and people were like, oh, that was in Summer Game Fest, and they pulled it to put it in our show. And you're like, yeah, no, those things have been in the our show was in Cannes for 10 days. So like, you don't mind a little bit. I think it's kind of unfair for us to go to a team and say, hey, like the Xbox brand is this, like, has this weight on it right now, and wouldn't it be really great if your asset could be the thing that we could point out, your game could be the thing that we point at that kind of changes that. And it's just not fair to any individual team, which is one of the reasons I mean, this position is paid to be in front of the brand, and I'll go out there and listen and take the feedback, and I think that's important. But the show itself is the show. Like, we'll pick some themes. Right. I think we knew this.
A lot of big guys. There's a lot of big guys. A lot of trailers.
Big guys, little freaks. That was
we knew that first party. Was strong in the show. We knew first party. Like 2022 was a light year for us on first party, no doubt. But we also knew we've got over 20 studios building games, and the progress that the teams were making. So I think early on we were pretty certain this was going to be a strong first party show. And then as the assets started to come together and you started to see the quality and having a couple new IP announces, then I think is where it all really paid off. But that's obviously through the planning of months, not in the last week.
At that time, we'll get to that. That's interesting, like figuring out when these games can actually come out. Obviously, that's a problem for everybody. But you said something a minute ago where it's you would feel awkward going to these studios and say, you need to help the brand, so do this. It feels like, and still, and I think this is a good thing, I wonder what your opinion is on it, that you want these studios to be doing the things that they want to be doing, and then you guys figure out the best way to then empower that. Is that what happening, and what are the issues that causes?
I think somebody asked me today, like, what's sort of the main thing you'd love to come out of the show? For me, I think one thing for us as a studio system is that this validates the approach, because as you point out, we put a lot lot of empowerment on our studio heads. A lot of them are creative directors. They help guide the project. We don't have a system where there's a central sort of brain trust telling everybody what to make. So there's a lot of risk in that. But when it pays off, I think you see a variety of games, which is important to us. I think, to your exact point, you get the passion of what they want to make comes through in the pixels, right? So, we've been trying to get that going for a couple, 3 years, and it's a little bit to Phil's point when people say, "Did you put that character in because of something happened last month?" Okay, that character was like 2 years ago. There's nothing that happened last week on this game, right? And that means we got to be patient. We got to know that it's going to pay off, and we got to get behind the studio heads. That so much of what we do depends on them as leaders locally in their studio and owning the creative.
Yeah, that also makes me wonder, like getting behind the studio. You mentioned with Redfall, we're not going to like obsess with that. You guys want to do it again?
Redfall 2? Is that what you said?
They didn't get the support it needed, but then you said, but after that, like, we're doing that with Starfield. What does that look like? You don't get the specifics. Like, if there's anything like color you can add to what that looks like, what does support for Starfield look like from your guys' perspective?
And also, like, how much of that support is now being put into the games that are shown today? Is Fable getting that level of support?
Yeah,
is Avowed getting that level of support? Because when you first talked about it, you indicated that it was like you were still kind of getting those engines warmed up, and that's kind of why it didn't. Work in that end, but are you at a stage now where the full kind of system is working as it should for all these other games?
Go for it. Yeah. So first, I think at this point, I think with ZeniMax Bethesda, let's think about what's happened since acquisitions of the ship, Deathloop, good game, Wires, good game, Hi-Fi Rush, good game. So they got a system there. So a little bit of, is it something new? Not really, right? I think with Redfall and Starfield, the thing that we're applying on Starfield, we talked a little bit about it this afternoon. We've got first the Advanced Technology Group that's under Sarah Bond, right? They know the Xbox hardware in and out. That's their lives, and they're there to help teams get frame rate, graphics. They help with the ray tracing on Forza. Are they helping on Avowed? That's a place where we've got the Unreal expertise. Our studio, the Coalition up in Vancouver, I think that outside of Epic, they're like top in the industry on Unreal. So those are the kinds of things that we're able to apply.
And is that working? Is that is it effective? Is that growing? Is it better than ever? What's the say to that?
Well, I think on Starfield, Todd will tell you that we've been engaged since like early last year. And I hope that it shows up in terms of how stable the game is, what they're able to put on screen in terms of graphics, but even a little bit also what it means to be a first-party game. It's one of the things we talk about is, something like Double Fine comes in, they will never get to ship a game as just Double Fine. It will always be looked at as first party.
Is it a little unfair to them?
Well, I think that's where it's on us to support them early. And maybe that's something we could have done a little better with Redfall, but that is that transition that happens, and that's where I think the Starfield team would say that they feel supported.
No, I mean, I was going to
jump to some third-party questions. It kind of goes into sort of looking at lineup. Obviously, the Persona stuff, Persona 3 leaked. But we still got surprises, and we talked about reception of the show. A lot of people so stoked to see such incredible representation from Japanese devs on Xbox. What has that kind of process been like expanding and talking more to Japanese studios?
Yeah, it's work. Like, it is work because we're not the strongest brand in Japan when you think about Sony, Nintendo, Switch, PlayStation, mobile, frankly, and the role that it plays for a lot of
I get the easy job because I get to introduce the people who everybody here and everyone in the world knows. We've got the founders of the largest foundation in the world, and the two most important philanthropists in the world right now. $300 million towards vaccine treatments, more than $1 billion for production distribution, more than $1 billion to Gavi, with more to come. But Bill and Melinda Gates are putting tremendous amount of time, money, and brain power towards solving this scourge. We appreciate it. We appreciate you guys joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Please, and I love the couch. Before we get into, I really want to focus obviously on COVID, but before that, Melinda, actually, you made some news this week with Mackenzie Bezos, your announcement about the Equality Can't Wait Challenge. You're putting $30 million into, basically to challenge ideas to move the needle in terms of gender equality. Can you maybe talk about the genesis of that and why you're doing this now?
Sure. I believe that we have to get gender equality here in the United States. It is imperative, and there are several barriers that hold women back. And we have to really, if we're going to bring women up, we have to invest in things to help them with their power and their influence. If we invest in 4 key sectors, such as politics, finance, tech, and media, it tells our stories, and we started to get gender equality in those 4 segments of society, we would change society at large. And so Mackenzie and I have been talking about this actually for quite some time, and this happened to be the right time to make the announcement, but we're looking for bold new ideas of how do you actually move gender equality in the United States. And so we thought this platform, Lever for Change, was the perfect place to announce that, and we will start to see candidates come forward, and we'll make some prize-winning announcements hopefully next summer.
Okay, guys, we just had Dr. Stoffels talking about timelines. It's the biggest question in the world, and you guys are right at the center of it. When are we going to have, whether it's a therapeutic or a vaccine, but when is the world going to be able to get back to normal? You guys are running point on it. Help.
Well, hopefully one of the 3 vaccines that are furthest along end up being both safe and efficacious. The Moderna went into human trials first, then the Oxford AstraZeneca, and then the Johnson & Johnson that you just heard about from Paul Stoffels. And so the animal data gives us pretty good hope that one of those will work. Doesn't look like they'll work as a single-dose vaccine, probably a 2-dose vaccine. If those don't work, then there's about a 6-month gap before you get the other candidates coming forward. And so to have one in the first half of next year, it'll have to be those 3. And we are quite hopeful and working in parallel to get the manufacturing capacity, not just for rich countries, but for the developing countries, where actually right now the majority of the cases are not in the rich countries anymore. They're in South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, including India, sadly seeing a big increase.
Yep. So maybe you can delve into that, because there's so much public focus on, okay, we have the vaccine, but it's not even halfway there, because if we don't immunize, if we don't get herd immunity, or we don't get a large majority of the world immunized, then we really haven't beat this. So what's the timetable on that?
Well, if you say that you've got to get, say, 80% of the world's population with a 2-dose vaccine, that's over 10 billion doses. The 2 of the constructs, the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson, are pretty scalable in their manufacturing. That is, you can do single plants that turn out over 600 million doses per year. And so we're going around the world and saying, okay, where do we reserve? Where in the US, Europe, India, China, where do you get that capacity? Which, if both AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson work, you can actually see a plan that's starting to come together that we'd be able to make over a 2-year period pretty close to that many doses. But it won't be overnight, and so you'll have a 2-year period manufacturer if things go well. You will have to have some prioritization of who's at the front of that line and who's not at the front of that line.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really important to say about these vaccines is
you've got to. Well, so look, here's one of the fundamental things that seems to me is different about the way you run
Alphabet and the way many of the CEOs here run their company. I mean, many of them have been to business school, they studied strategy, they read Michael Porter's book, and there's an emphasis on focus and making decisions about what you don't do as well as what you do decide to do. You're doing everything. I mean, you want to remake the energy business, you want to remake the telecommunications business, you want to remake the transportation business, you want to, so can you talk about how, I mean, you heard this from Steve Jobs, I understand. He said you're doing too many things.
Yeah, I mean, he was right. I mean, he did fine as well.
But you haven't slowed down. I mean, that's why we called you the most ambitious CEO in the universe. And the truth is, we didn't have data on the whole universe. But it's a lot you're biting off.
Yeah, no, I worry about that, in fact. And I think for me, I mentioned I wanted to make a company kind of for engineers, like thinking about it that way. I think also as an entrepreneur, I would start at Google. Trying to make a company for entrepreneurs also is something I think we're striving for. And I think in the same way, maybe when I was working for the consulting company in DC, it wasn't really my inner calling. I think for most entrepreneurs, working for companies is also not so great.
Why?
I think it's a combination of companies generally trying to do the things they do well, plus the things that are adjacent, and not thinking creatively about what they might have learned from doing one of the things they've already done, how that might translate into a new business.
They're not ambitious enough?
I mean, I think it's maybe not that as much as learning from your business. Like, I really like going and talking to the people who run our data centers. But I ask them, like, how does the transformer work? How does the power come in? What do we pay for that? I ask lots and lots and lots of questions. And I'm thinking about it kind of both as an entrepreneur and as a business person. And I'm thinking, what are those opportunities? So in any big business, any of the people.
Hello, podcast fan. On, John.
I'll just cut right to the chase. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Federighi.
Thank you. Did you soccer and not run out here? I thought I had a little bounce in my step. Did you? Look at the little ran there. You okay? I'm excited about this whole Vision Pro thing. It's great. Got me a little pumped. Yeah.
Well, the fun part's over.
Oh.
I kid. I have to ask though, what's it like not to be the star of WWDC?
It's okay. Wow. It's okay. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, your run of 8 shows ended really kind of abruptly. It really did. That was it. Yeah. No, it's all right. Feel pretty good about it.
Team player.
I guess so.
It's very exciting.
So not watching keynote, he's in it for like an hour and 20 minutes. By duration alone. Is that really it? Yeah. That's all anyone was talking about, really. I think when the show ended,
You're still a star to me, Craig.
Oh, Josh.
All right, well, let me just start.
Yeah, let's move on.
It's ducking great to see you.
Oh, thank you.
That's a good one.
We agree. Thank you.
But we are, I mentioned it before when John was out here, that we're going through industry-wide, worldwide, an AI moment, right? Something is leveled up, something is different on this front than before, and your ducking joke was in the context of something, a feature everybody uses, right? And autocorrect. And that autocorrect is now, I guess, re-engineered? I mean, it's not tweaked and a little better. It sounds to me like this is a new way of doing autocorrect.
Yeah, it is. So we, as I mentioned briefly, and I was like, blah, 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 blah. Where's Vision Pro, blah, blah. So we use a transformer language model. We did not in the past. I mean, if you look at the field around text prediction, what are called LSTMs were kind of in vogue for many years, and that's what we used. And now we use a much more powerful class of model called transformer models, which are used for all kinds of, all the hotness you're hearing about now is built around transformer models. Now this is one that's meant to be incredibly fast on device so that on every keystroke we can be predicting the next word with much greater accuracy. But it's not just about, for us, the model. A lot of what we did is the experience. So as you're typing, sometimes it's ambiguous how we should autocorrect. And now we make sure that if we did do an autocorrection, we actually leave a little blue highlight to tell you like we did it. And if you just tap, you can correct, you can say, no, not that, this, right? And so we want to make it really easy to use autocorrect. We also do multi-word autocorrections, which is part of what the power of this language model lets us do. And so often you find it doesn't just predict the word you're typing, but several words ahead of what you're typing. You just hit the space bar and take it all in. So I think it's really around optimizing the whole experience. But I think your broader question about AI,